episode 121.
Are you ready to take your eBay business to the next level? Then hold on, because Ron and Ali are going to take you into the fast lane with the latest tips and insights from some of the biggest and most successful sellers here on the So You Wanna Sell on eBay podcast.
Welcome once again to another episode of So You Want to Sell on eBay. I'm Ron LeBeau.
And I'm Ali Young.
Hey, everyone. We have with us today from Atlanta, Georgia, Jeff Hathaway. Jeff, how you doing today, sir?
Doing great, guys. How about yourself?
I'm doing good here in St. Louis. Ali, how's Thailand today, sir?
Thailand's awesome. I don't know why, but I was about to go, yeah. I always do that when I get some sort of Americans on. It's like, I want to be that, like the cowboys, you know, yeah. But anyway, moving along swiftly, Ron.
Okay. Anyhow, so Jeff is the owner of Atlanta Classic Comics, an eBay-based collectibles store. He started in 2011 in Atlanta, Georgia. Very cool. I'm curious to see what you guys actually do. What kind of spectrum do you cover with the comics?
Well, we certainly focus in on comics. I mean, when you're in the collectible space, you're going to have opportunities to dabble in vinyl records or toys or, you know, collectible glassware or, you know, memorabilia, autographs, whatever. But we try to specialize on comics or in comics just because that's kind of the lane we're in. So we find that our market is strongest if we kind of stay in our lane as far as that goes.
There's a picture online, because I just looked you up. It looks like a real serious office in your place. There's a picture with all three of you wearing masks, yeah? Is that how you work, is it? You work with masks, do you?
Something like that. Yeah. That was actually taken a couple years ago, and I think it's certainly one of the highlights of our photographic exploits, that's for sure. But yeah, it's kind of, if you came into our shop, you might just think we were hanging out watching Netflix, because that's about all that really happens in the interim of when stuff is actually getting done. That's
amazing. So let's go back here. So was this something that you were interested as a kid? I mean, is this where you came about to get into this world?
Well, it's actually kind of a funny story. I was never really that into comics as a kid, but my grandfather that gave me 100 comics when I was a kid that I always kind of somehow held on to. You know, you go through life and you have certain, you know, you move or you grow up or you clean your room out or your mom throws your stuff away or whatever. And somehow those comics just always kind of hung in there. And so that was kind of the seed, if you will, that was planted as far as for the business. And then as I moved into my teenage years and early adulthood, I was, you know, it was kind of at the same time frame when you started to see the rise of the comic book movie, where, you know, it became more in or hip or however you want to word it, less stigma about the hobby. And, you know, so I was always kind of into the comic book movies, the cartoons, stuff like that as a kid. And then when one night, I don't remember why, but one night I was on eBay. I had done some selling on eBay before, just kind of like, you know, going to yard sales, picking stuff up that I thought I could find a larger market for online, and dabbled in that. And I saw online that I could pick up lots of comic books, you know, at 10 cents a piece, something like that. Wow. And on eBay, there were people selling them in a grab bag setting for $1 or $2 a book. And so I just, you know, did some quick math and was like, well, maybe I can, you know, sell 20, 30 of these grab bags a month, pick up a few $100 without really doing a whole lot. And honestly, I started buying up these collections and realizing I had some stuff I didn't need to put in a grab bag, some stuff that was maybe a little bit more valuable. And really, it just kind of snowballed from there. One thing led to another. So that's really it.
So you actually kind of learned the value of these comic books after you started your business?
Completely on the fly, which I realize is probably
wow.
That's awesome. That's inspiring.
It's crazy. But see, the thing is our business has morphed, you know, since we started 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it's been. But you can do that on eBay because of the fact that you can auction things. So it doesn't really matter if you know what something's worth at a certain extent, as long as there's a market out there that you have enough eyeballs on it, the market will tell you what it's worth. Now, as we moved on and started to learn what things sold for, I decided I wanted to get out of the job that I had where I had to list, 40, 50 things a night, 1 week, and then start all over, each night, completely new stuff. And so we moved into selling things by pricing them where we wanted them to sell and just waiting for the right guy to come along. So there was certainly some transition in that because it's a totally different business model, but that was kind of what we started to move into once there was about a year or two of knowledge basis that had kind of been built up by selling things in an auction setting.
Crazy.
Wow, man, that's awesome. So you actually started out with, putting a few grab bags together. And how many comic books would you say you have in your possession right now?
Well, right now I'm in Seattle, so I don't have any. But at my warehouse,
okay,
right in your suitcase.
Back in Atlanta, we probably have close to 500,000. Would be my guess.
No way, jeez.
That's 500,000, Jeff. Are you serious?
I'm glad you told me that, Ron. So is it So these must be like sealed or something. I mean, these in like airtight bags. You have to go in with a gas mask to touch these things.
We don't do any of that, but it's funny. There is actually a store that I went to the other day that, believe it or not, I know you were joking, but they actually treated them that way. I'm out here in Seattle. There's a store a few blocks from where I'm at where I asked if they had anything expensive that I could take a peek at. And they said, well, you can only come on Wednesday when the owner's here. They're in the vault. You have to schedule them. And I'm like, okay, whatever, man. I'll, good luck. I'll see you guys later.
Dude. Yeah. So do you... Okay, because I don't know much about comics. So is there I always thought that if you had the #1 edition, that's like the rarest one. Is that how it works? I mean, you have the originals or something, or?
No, it certainly can. I mean, there's definitely exceptions, but I mean, the most valuable book of all time, ironically, sold out of a store up here in Seattle where I am for I want to say $3 or $4 million a few years ago, and that was the first Superman appearance, which was in Action Comics #1. So yeah, I mean, there are exceptions to that. For example, the Deadpool is a character that everybody's really familiar with and kind of in and hip right now. Deadpool appeared in an issue of New Mutants, issue number 98. So New Mutants #1 might be worth, say, $20 or $30, but number 98 is worth, $400, $500, $600, $1,000, whatever. So there's certainly kind of exceptions of #1 being worth something or something old being worth something, whereas sometimes it's a newer thing that draws people's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said about the auctions, too, because it's absolutely correct. I mean, you can know that you don't have to know about comic books to know that they do sell. I mean, you can do a little bit of research and find that out. And then, like you said, the auctions will tell you the value of them. And you can kind of, I guess that's how you learned your business. Is that pretty accurate then? Or
I mean, well, between the auctions and there's a price guide that, is generally kind of accepted as the Bible of the price guides in the industry, in the space. So between that and seeing what things would sell for in auction, I mean, I think it's definitely, you have to be careful if you're going to auction things. I don't ever really advise that to anybody that would ask me about it, just because what we see is you may see 30, 40, 50% of an asking price realized in an auction thing. And so you have to be really careful if you're going to do that. Because there's plenty of people out there that, we all know this, that'll sit there until the last 10 seconds of an auction and then throw their best offer out there. And,
yeah, that's it. Boom.
I think they call them snipers or whatever. Yeah. And so that kind of thing is, I don't know. It's not very sustainable. I mean, if there's only but so much time in a day and so much effort you can do. And when it comes to comic books, to get them to a point where they can be put up for sale, they have to be basically sorted. We sort things into different batches. Sometimes we'll sell it in a batch. Sometimes we'll sell it as a single issue. So, you have to get all that prep work done. And then to put it up for sale, and you got basically 1 week, you can only do that 40, 50 times a night, or, it takes a couple hours. So your business can only get so big that way. So the auctions are definitely a good starting point if you have something like with me, if you have no idea what something's worth. And I think they also will give you a barrier of entry to the customer base because of the simple fact that they're getting a good deal if they're going to get it in an auction. So people are going to give you a shot if you're new and you've never tried anything or tried to sell before to kind of build a reputation. And then if you maneuver into a buy it now type model like we did a few years ago, then you're going to already have a basis of people that trust you. Yeah. So we certainly lost some people when we shifted from auction to buy it now because, I think in people's minds, they don't think they're getting a good deal or what have you. But, the business certainly rebounded pretty quick and it was much stronger now than it was when it was strictly auction based.
I just say,
hey, Ali,
yo,
I was just going to say, if you're curious, Ali, you can buy this All Top Comics number 14. Right now, it is at $24.75, man.
Cool. Can I just use your credit card, Ron? We can do that.
No, I fell for that 2 times already, Ali. We're not doing that anymore. I told you about that.
So what? Yeah. This is just, to be honest with you, this sounds mental because I don't even know how you can manage all of that. You're talking about bulks. You're talking about, this. You must have like 1,000 staff members, do you? You're all little robots.
Well, we actually had the most our staff has ever been up to is about 6 or 7 people. We're actually now back down to just 3 people, and some of that is because in the past, eBay's offered larger anchor stores free insertion fee promotions and stuff like that. So whenever we have a larger scale promotion fee, then we'll try to hire someone extra to basically replace that income that we are not spending with eBay to spend it with, providing a job for someone to kind of grow the business. But the most recent offer we had like that, they took away at the end of this previous year. So we're back down to a skeleton crew. And honestly, our secret with not killing ourselves is at the end of every listing we have, we just put in a code that's unique to where we store the book. And then, whenever that item sells on eBay's sold log, that box code is printed right there on our order sheet, and it's pretty easy. It's kind of like a low-level library card catalog type system. So,
yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. I'm looking at this JJ1. Is that what you're referring to? Something like that?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow, that is really cool. So
consignments, and so we'll give a consignee their own unique code. Like we have one of our larger consignments name is Adam Davis. So we have a AD code that goes through about 50 boxes that is all stuff that, was his that we are now selling for him. And that's how we manage the consignment process as well. As we just kind of check in on the codes at the end of every month.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your systems are what keep you alive, I think. And we talk about this all the time. Obviously, when you're handling 500,000 books, and then you just mentioned consignments, so they're not even all yours in some areas. It's really important to get those systems in place and make it just as easy as can possibly be.
Yeah, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but that is literally the only way you can survive at scale like this. To think about in my mind what we were like even 2 years ago from a management standpoint versus just some of the things we've learned over time. Something as simple as if there was a, say, Green Lantern 1 through 5 that was printed in 2004 and then a Green Lantern 1 through 5 and printed in 2014, back in the day, a year ago.
Back in the good old days.
Might have put both of those groups of books in the same box because they're different. Yep. But what we've learned is that it makes more sense to split stuff like that up so that my store manager doesn't have to have that extra level of possibility to make a mistake where he may accidentally send somebody the 2014 set instead of the 2004 set. So, it's little things like that you pick up over time that, really you just learn through experience. Comics are one thing, but I guess probably sizes with jeans, if you were selling jeans, would be something similar to that, where you'd have to manage the kind of detail of the item.
Ron and Ali will be right back after this short break.
Life is full of numbers. Our brains process literally hundreds of numbers and equations every hour of every day. When it comes to your business, give your brain a break as well as peace of mind that the numbers are figuring up as they should with MyCostPro. MyCost Pro is an easy-to-use automated eBay bookkeeping program for Excel that imports sales data directly from your seller account. MyCost Pro automatically generates accounting and performance reports to show you your true bottom-line profit. You can even view and edit active listing details such as price and quantity, and relist unsold items directly from MyCost Pro. All you need is Excel on your Windows PC. Take control of your business and free up those long nights of crunching the numbers. Visit MyCostPro.com for a 21-day no-obligation free trial using coupon code PODCAST, exclusively for So You Want to Sell on eBay podcast listeners. It's only right around the corner. Ecom Chicago 2017. Innovate, inspire, and grow. Join us October 19th through 21st in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, for the 4th annual event that focuses on e-commerce and business growth. Hear strategies from expert speakers. Learn new ideas and techniques that will help to develop your business. Speak and network with like-minded online sellers, as well as experts and mentors who will be available throughout the event, such as Jason T. Smith, Kathy Terrell, Eddie Levine, and Peter Cairns, just to name a few. The wealth of experience, knowledge, and enthusiasm is sure to be mind-blowing. Go to ecomchicago.com for more information. Sponsorship opportunities available. New this year for attendees is a pre-event vendor showcase on Thursday, October 19th, where our participating vendors will be giving live, focused demos on their product or service.
Be sure to check out SoYouWannaSellOnEBay.com for the latest podcasts and all the information you need to get selling fast.
So what about things like shipping then? So do you have to, do you have to put these in protective, registered shipping, stuff like that? Or you just ship normally, do you?
We do not. It's funny because we've actually had people before that they kind of hear what I tell them what I do, and then they'll respond with something that's totally ridiculous. For example, we went to buy new scanners a couple years ago, and I went to the Staples locally and told the guy I needed scanners to scan comic books, and he referred me to one that did the slide through where it would.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you understand. I don't want to destroy every product I have. I want to scan it like with a flat top, and so there's. People don't understand. I mean, I've bought comics before online, and yeah, some people will literally just throw it in a manila envelope and, send it on its way. And believe it or not, I've actually gotten a couple that didn't get utterly destroyed. But I mean, just like I try to prevent mistakes from my own staff by kind of thinking above and beyond what it is they might accidentally make a mistake on, we try to even be that much more careful with the post office, because most of the stuff we do is through the post office. And, I've been on the back dock before dropping off at my post office where I've been for 5 years, where they know me. Everybody knows my name. I know everyone's name. It's like the Cheers theme song right when I walk in. And I literally just take the bin and just throw it. And I'm like, if that's how my people treat me, how's the guy in Topeka going to treat it when, he doesn't even, there's no shame in my own post office. So Lord knows the guy in, wherever, California is not going to care. So yeah, we ship about 250 to 300 orders a week. We definitely do protect this stuff. I tell people we have a 99+% delivery, successful delivery rate, which is accurate and basically equates to something like maybe, one package every quarter that gets damaged in transit, which is also something that we definitely kind of learned on the fly and grew and added to over the years.
Wow. So yeah, I'm looking at these gold age comics, man. 113 of them currently right now, and these are some pretty. Where do you get these? I mean, there's like 113 of these things. These are high dollar comics, man. Where do you source these?
Well, a lot of this time, what we do is we've been kind of backed into a great situation being, where we're selling them in Atlanta, because Atlanta is a big time transient city where you don't have a lot of people necessarily from Atlanta. You get a lot of people from the Northeast or from Chicagoland or from Florida or whatever that will move into our area. And so there's a higher, I think, concentration of, because comics when they first came out, I think they were more concentrated in the Northeast, where you'd have a lot more people per capita, if you will, that would be into comics in the kind of golden age of comics in New York, Pennsylvania, that area. And so we've been lucky being in Atlanta. We're also very close to the airport. So, people, land and they're sitting on our tarmac for an hour and a half, and we're the closest Google result to a comic book store. So we have a lot of people that just kind of find us that way, that will, call in. And the other thing, too, is a lot of places, if you go to a comic book store, if you go to 10 comic book stores in Missouri where you are, Ron, you might find one guy that's willing or interested in buying something that is older or more of a collectible variety, because most current comic shops are really like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Gaming type stores that will offer comics as a kind of secondary business. And primarily what they're selling is just stuff that, because comics are still being published. So they're primarily just selling books that come out on Wednesdays and new books. And, that's great if you're into that. But for me, it's a little hard. I don't know what line of work you guys are in, but with a new comic, you have to spend $2, $3, $4, $5 for it. Whereas we buy stuff for $1 that we can sell for $1,000. Yeah. And so, wow. And with a new comic, you walk out the door and it's worth, a quarter of what you paid for it. And that's the opposite when you're versed in picking older stuff. So that's buying collections. That's the main thing we do, is buy and consign larger collections.
But that book will be worth $1,000 in about 70 years if you're still around.
Well, you would hope so, but honestly, I mean, we have stuff. If you pop on that, where Ron's at, even where the golden age stuff is at, I guarantee you there's a couple books in there that are probably less than $50, and those are 60, 70 years old. Yep. So some of it is really just the content. I mean, there's there was a whole kind of, if you were to look at it like a television, there was, all kinds of sitcoms that were put out in the 50s and 60s, like maybe Westerns or, I don't know, shows that I Love Lucy type thing that maybe isn't quite as popular today. And then there's some things that hold their, interests, so like sports, for example. I mean, if you have something that's sports related from the 30s or 40s, then it's still valuable today because people still care about sports. But if you've got, a Bonanza comic book from 1955, there might not be a lot of people that care about it because Bonanza hasn't been on the air for 40 years. So that's why some of the superhero stuff is so hot right now, and it's such a good business to be in right now, is because they're churning out all these movies every quarter, and so far good. They haven't started to be terrible yet, so we're gonna hopefully keep riding that wave for a little while.
It's amazing. I mean, this is amazing that you've learned this during doing this business. I mean, you just sound like you've been doing this since you were born. I mean, the way you talk and stuff about this is a real passion. Just for me, what's the difference between a gold age, silver age, bronze age, and a copper age?
Well, it's just basically a reference to the years that they were published. So Golden Age is basically beginning with the Action Comics #1 that I had mentioned earlier, which would have been published in 1938, which is the first appearance of Superman. Oh. And that's really, ironically, kind of the only benchmark that everyone can agree on, because from there, some people will tell you Golden Age ends in 1945. Some people will tell you Golden Age ends in the 50s. Some people will tell you Golden Age ends when Showcase 4 comes out, which is the kind of rebirth of the Flash in 1959, I believe. Yeah. So basically, it's all kind of relative, but it's just an age designation. So the golden age would be 40s and 50s. Silver age is generally accepted as like 1960 to 1970. Bronze age would be somewhere around 1970 to 1980. Copper, 80 to about 90. And then honestly, the modern age, I guess they ran out of ideas, because it's been the modern age since 1990, which is the longest designation. I mean, but I think the trick is when you start calling something the modern age, you can't. What do you change that from? Because modern. it's like calling it the now age, and then it's like, well, you can't still call it the now age if it's not now anymore. So it's kind of
I mean, that might explain why you have 12,422 comics in that category. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's certainly going to have the, that's what most people have. I mean, the big time that people bought comics, the boom time, if you will, would have been back when they first were introduced from the late 30s to World War II, and then after that they were actually kind of like public enemy number one for a little while. I mean, there was a pretty noted scientist or psychologist named Frederick Worthen who actually kind of had comics on his hit list. He said they basically contributed to children being delinquents, which is, it's all relative. I mean, because back then, I think the number one thing that kids got in trouble for in school was chewing gum, and now obviously we know that there's a little bit higher degree of crime and debauchery happening in schools. And so, he basically said that comics are the reason, and they had comic burnings and
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was the real deal, and I mean, you're talking millions upon millions of dollars worth of stuff that would have been burned up, because this happened in the Eisenhower days, I believe, in the mid 50s. And so everything before that was, every single one of those books could have been the most valuable book that we have in the store, and they were just torturing them. So
I'm sitting here. I'm
been cleaned it up. I was just say, after that, they kind of forced a censorship on the comics that they pretty much adhered to until the late 60s, early 70s, when you started to see some of the drug prevalence in the culture, when Marvel and DC were actually, I think it was Marvel was actually contacted by the United States government to tell a story about drug use and how kids shouldn't do it. And then comics became a use of activism, or a tool of education for, don't do this, don't do that. And, so yeah, they've served a lot of different purposes in American culture since the late 30s. That's for sure.
Wow. This is kind of taking me back. Now, I never was much into comic books either when growing up, but I was into popular mechanics and, Boys Life when I was a Boy Scout and things. And one of the fascinating things that I loved about those magazines was the back. The last 10 or 15 pages of the ads. Do these comic books have the ads in the back, like, the X-ray glasses and all,
Yeah. My favorite. The one thing that will catch you off guard, more than anything else, if you look at the comic ads, is how many, and we're talking, had to be close to 1 million, more than 1 million issues that had. Not individual issues, but copies that had ads with O.J. Simpson all over them.
Oh, which wow!
Is terribly ironic. How I guess just how famous he was versus how infamous he is now. But I mean, he was a big salesman for, I want to say it was some kind of a boot company that they sold to kids. That was, countless issues. There's one that actually ironically there's a guy on the back of the ad, I kid you not, he looks just like the guy that they have playing Magneto in the current X-Men stuff from like 40 years earlier, Michael Fassbender. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The ads are really neat. Some of the issues, believe it or not, actually have value because of the ad referencing a future book in them. There's an issue of Daredevil, for example, that has a little small photograph saying, coming next month, Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine. And so you see Wolverine in the ad on the comic. And that's, if you want to be really literal, the first appearance where you see Wolverine in a comic book. And so there's, the book may be worth $2, but because of the ad, it's a $20 book, stuff like that. So the ads are definitely kind of a neat kind of niche part of the hobby.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool because, like I said, they kind of foretell the future. It's like, the popular mechanics ads, it's like, hey, coming up, we're going to have a phone with no cord, and it's like, and then believe it or not, in the next 10 years, we're going to have, you'll be able to see the person you're speaking with on the phone. And we're all, back then, we're like, no possible way. How are you going to do that? And here we are.
You guys talking in Seattle, St. Louis, and Thailand. So
over Skype.
Yeah.
Visionary than the comic book ads, that's for sure. I mean, a lot of the comic book ads were kind of targeted at 8 to 13-year-old boys. Look like Charles Atlas, I think the guy's name was. I forget. Mr. Strongman. So, sell these little tchotchkes and knickknacks, and make an extra $1 this summer. Little things like that. But it's definitely a unique part of and a cool part of the history.
So when a new movie comes out, like you said, they're coming out so often and stuff, like when a new Spider-Man film comes out or something like that, do you find your comics sell more? Do you sell more of your products?
Ironically, we actually see that there's a bigger boost when the stuff is announced. So, like, for example, if you've got, if you've got a, sorry, my dad and everybody just showed back up from being out. But no, if you see, like, for example, when San Diego Comic-Con happens every year and they announce which movies are going to be really announced, then you'll start to see villains from that character or important storylines from that character will spike in value. Or if something happens in a movie, usually, you see, the problem with the movies these days is that there's so much stuff that's known before the movie ever comes out. Yep. And so a lot of the spike in value happens months, even years, and sometime before the actual movie itself hits the theaters. But sometimes you'll see a surprise reveal. The biggest one that I can think of is at the end of the original Avengers movie. You see Thanos at the very end of the movie, and that scene instantly, and others like it, will add $200-300 in value to a book like that. And so there's certainly some of that. But really, I just think the kind of consciousness of the movies in people's minds is really more what adds the value.
I mean, amazing. So final question before we leave here, because you're just fantastic, mate. Seriously, I bet it's so much fun in your house. I bet you're all like, yeah, did you see what Spider-Man did last week? He saved Batwoman and stuff like that. But where do you see your business growing then? What's your plans here? You've got 500,000 books. As Ron pointed out, that's 500,000 for people who aren't good at maths. But where do you see this empire of yours building to?
Well, I mean, honestly, the kind of final frontier, if you will, for us is
look, see, the only way he can talk is in terminology of comics.
There you go. Now, there's a whole nother kind of business model outside, even if for online, if you were to do comics, there's kind of four main models. There's an auction-based model, there's a buy it now model, there's a convention model where you go to shows and sell in site or in person rather. And that for us is a little tricky. I'm married, I have 2 kids. I prefer not to spend 30 weekends a year in a hotel ballroom, and so we don't pursue that model. But then the other model is there's a big I don't want to call it a fad, but there's a movement where people are grading their comics and kind of having them certified by independent grading companies. And a lot of times you'll see the values will grow, 100, 200% once there's that numerical grade attached to that book. So some of the stuff that we've considered doing is in trying to have more of our stock graded, because, you can see a higher return on the book value if you do that. But that, or just one of the biggest things we've done in recent years has been the consignment. I mean, growing our consignment business has certainly been something that has helped us to grow, because a lot of places, you go to try to sell your comics, they offer you 10 pennies on the dollar for something, or less than that in some situations. And with us, we work out a ratio percentage, if you will, with our customers that works for them, where they can get a lot more return on their stuff than those lowball offers that they get in a lot of stores. So that's a big thing, and just kind of trying to seek out those larger collections, because that's really the quickest way to grow quick.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, we hope to bring you back on the show here, Jeff, because
anytime.
You just talk so quick. It's brilliant. When was the last time? Ron's been so quiet there. You're right, Ron. I mean, you haven't had a chance to talk, have you?
If you'd shut up no, everything's fine here, Ollie. Everything's fine.
No, it's brilliant, Jeff. Seriously, we can see that, we can feel the passion in your voice. You have this, and you just talk so much about it. And I just think it's a great product. We've had people on here before with cards and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And that's another reason to be selling on eBay. It's a great market for what you're doing. You're getting the audience at a larger scale, and you're obviously, by the seriousness of that picture I saw earlier, having so much fun. So, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, we really enjoyed it today.
Problem, guys. Yeah, make sure to check us out. We're on Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. We have our own website, AtlantaClassicComics.com. We do weekly sales, giveaways, first look at new collections we're buying, all that fun stuff. So we're certainly a good follow if you're in the space, because we actually give away extra discounts to people that are in those channels checking us out. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. Happy to come back anytime.
Brilliant. So we'll put all those details there on the show notes page, which can be found at www.soyouwantasellonebay.com/show notes. Go to that page. You'll be able to check out everything that Jeff just mentioned then. Also, there's this great resources page that you can check out some great links that other previous guests use for building and making their empires bigger. So from everyone here at So You Want to Sell on eBay, I'm Ali Young.
And I'm Ron LeBeau.
That's all for this episode of So You Want to Sell on eBay. Be sure to check out our next episode or any past episodes by going online to soyouwantasellonebay.com. Also, be sure to follow us on your favorite social media sites, facebook.com/So You Want to Sell on eBay, and Twitter @Your eBay Podcast. Thanks for listening. And until next time, happy selling.
Have an idea for a topic or know someone who would like to be on the show? Let us know. Just go to www.soyouwantasellonebay.com/interview. We look forward to hearing from you. This podcast was produced in part by Pro Voice Works.